So hello and welcome to another happiness class. I do this every Sunday, 2 p.m, a little bit past 2 p.m. now, in Speaker's Corner. If you're watching on YouTube and you don't know where we are right now, it's based on science, logic, and inspired by Islam. You can see the whole happiness class all for free. I do it 100% for free, no money at all. BigQuestionsAnswer.com. And so today's talk is about purpose of life. So I'm going to be really quick. Hopefully in about 5 minutes I'll tell you everything, then feel free to ask your questions. So first of all, we're going to ask, what has purpose of life got to do with happiness? So I'm going to tell you a little bit of story about a bee. Okay, a bee, I've heard about bees. What they have, they seem to have pockets on their legs or something to collect nectar. Basically, they're really good at being bees. Yeah, so that's just one example of something from nature. Now, if you take a bee and the bee decides to be a cat, what do you think is going to happen to the bee? It's not going to have a good time, is it? Bee is going to be really rubbish at being a cat. Now, you might think that's ridiculous, okay, but that's kind of like what we try to do as human beings. We're also part of nature. We must have some sort of purpose, right? All these other fantastic creatures in nature. But if we try to be cats or something we're not designed to be, we're going to have a really bad time, and that's what we're seeing in society. Right? So that's kind of the link between purpose and happiness. If we don't do what we're made for, we're not going to be very happy. So you're going to find out in a second. Yeah, feel free to join in here. That's all right. So you had a great question, what we're made for, and that's coming in about 1 minute. Okay, so before I get going into that, I want to talk about the 3 ways that kind of come to mind that how you might work out your purpose. So some people want to figure it out themselves, great. Some people want to listen to Beckham. You know Beckham? Yeah, the footballer. Or the Kardashians, or whatever's fashionable. Yeah, people follow the fashion, that's another way. But I think a really good way would be to ask the Creator, because He already knows your purpose. He made you, right? That would be nice if you could and if you believed in God, right? So some people don't believe in God. All I'll say for now is that I'll ask you a quick question now. Did somebody make this microphone? Right? So in our experience, everything that's created always has a creator. It doesn't come from nothing. Right? That's our experience. There's no single experience when that doesn't happen. Okay? So I could go into that more if you wanted to, but I'm not going to because I'm trying to keep this super short. Now, before I tell you the purpose of life, I think there's a really good way of testing if it is the purpose of life or not. Right? And it's the way we measure or do anything in our lives, right? If we feel some pain, let's say you walk into a wall, okay, you feel some pain, you go, I'm not going to do that again. Pain is telling you, don't do it. Right? Okay. Oh, sorry, I don't want to. Oh, you don't want to be on camera? That's cool. That's all right. You don't have to be on camera. But the opposite of pain is happiness, right? So happiness, long-term happiness, is a good sign you're doing something in line with your design. And if you're feeling pain and suffering and getting depressed, that's a good sign you're doing something wrong with your life, right? So here you go. Here's the purpose of life according to Islam and according to many different religions. And it goes something like this. It's the eternal journey into the beauty of God by letting go of your ego and doing good works. Now, I can actually logically, scientifically break all those things down, but I'm going to keep it super short. There's 2 things you should know about psychology, and I told you this is about psychology and science, okay? And a lot of people are really surprised when they hear this, and it's that psychologists, atheist psychologists included, will tell you religion makes you happier. There's loads of studies about this, right? But I'm telling you about it broadly. So why does it do that? It gives you 2 things, meaning, okay, and community. So meaning, people don't realize this as well. If you ask Viktor Frankl, well, you can't ask him, he's dead now, but he's like kind of the father of he's one of the greatest psychologists of our time, along with Freud and other people, right? And he said meaning is essential to happiness, right? So it gives you that. You can imagine religion does that, right? It's not hard to imagine that. But it also gives you community. It's kind of thing like if you go to a religion, if you're a Christian, Muslim, Jew, whatever, you join together as a community once a week. You don't get that otherwise. But atheism, so that's one direction. I'm just kind of broadly giving you a direction about what psychologists tell you about what makes you happy and therefore what's in line with your purpose. The opposite of that is atheism, right? And I'm not against atheists. I love atheists. I love everybody, right? Okay. But what do psychologists say about atheism? First of all, atheism leads to nihilism, which means there is no meaning. So that's killing meaning. Meaning is essential to happiness. So you're basically killing happiness, right? And also, it disconnects people, and you can see that in London, right? Such a busy place, so many people, yet loneliness is the biggest killer in London. Did you know loneliness is the biggest killer in London? Right? It's crazy, right? Because we're social beings, we need to be connected. If we're not, we get stressed, we feel horrible about ourselves, and we die off quite a lot. So, in short, that's kind of pointers as to what's good for you and what's not good for you. And essentially, if I break down that thing, what I said about what is the purpose of life, this eternal journey into the beauty of God. The essential part is God. God is the center of our purpose, right? And you can see that through religion and psychology. But one thing I want to tell you, and this is really close to my heart, and if you take away anything, this is one thing I want you to, every day of your life, question this, and it will help you, and that is, materialism will never fulfill you, but God will. That's it. That's my message. And if there was an easy way, rather than asking psychologists and science and trying to get rough directions about what is the purpose of life, I'll give you a really simple way. Go to the Holy Quran, which is available online, read that book, and it will prove to you that God, it is written by God, because it tells you lots of amazing things, and in it are the details of how to fulfill your purpose that will give you peace, which is the meaning of Islam. Any questions? Any thoughts? Any questions? I don't mind. Yeah? No problem. If you got no questions, there's plenty more to explain. I'm going to quickly talk about some of the things I didn't.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time. So, I said the meaning of life is the eternal journey into the beauty of God. I can break down every single bit of that, including letting go of your ego and doing good works. I can break down every single part of that into science. So, the eternal journey. What does that mean? Okay. Well, first of all, it means that, a lot of people think, religious people, a lot of people say about Islam that when you go to heaven, they think that's the end of the story. No, it's an eternal journey. That's not the end. You don't just sit back and do nothing. You're continuously growing. Now, how do you know that from science, okay? How do you know that there is an afterlife? I'm going to talk about it really briefly. So the journey from a sperm to a baby in the womb to life outside the womb, each is separated by a kind of death. But when I say a kind of death, it's a perspective. So did you know that when a sperm enters an egg, it blows up? It has to blow up, it has to destroy itself, and an inner essence enters the egg. So from the perspective of the sperm, it thinks it's death, right? But actually, that point is the beginning of a higher form of life, right? Wouldn't you say a baby in the womb is a higher form of life than a sperm? Right? Fair enough, right? But from the perspective of the sperm, it's dead. It literally has to blow up. Did you know it blows up and has to destroy itself? Yeah, but anyway, you can Google this, YouTube it, whatever, right? Okay? And then, there's a baby inside the womb. For the baby to enter the outside world, outside the womb, it has to also go a form of death. So, everybody knows the umbilical cord is what the baby depends on for food and air and absolutely everything. But when it has to be born, that has to be taken off. So that is death for the baby in terms of the life inside the womb, but it's a greater life outside the womb. So death is just the perspective from lower forms of life. The sperm feels the sense of death, the baby feels the sense of death. It's a traumatic thing, you know. The baby breathes for the first time when it's born, right? So the same thing when it comes to the end of this life. Psychologists will tell you that the conscience, Freud has talked about the conscience, it's a very living thing. It's not an airy fairy thing. So that thing is, that conscience, that soul is the thing that continues.
Why is not exactly the example for purpose in life?
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with everything that Freud says, but I'm saying psychology.
Why we are here?
Yeah. So anyway, so that explains this kind of eternal journey. It's not the end. There's good reason to believe that there is a next life. But as I say, if you go to the Quran, you have many more reasons to believe in the next life and so many other things, right? So then I said, journey into the beauty of God. Like, do we care about God? Do we have an attraction to God? I'm going to point out another psychological fact, right? And that is that nature is far more powerful as an antidepressant than any pharmaceutical antidepressant, right? What has that got to do with love of God, right? Nature is a reflection of God. If you think about it, it's a reflection of God. It's got God's fingerprints all over it, right? And that's a sign that we have an attraction to God. There's many other reasons why you could explain that we have an attraction towards God, right? So that's another thing. And then there's other things. So even like, have you heard of dopamine? Right, it's a hormone, the happiness dopamine, right? Did you know that you get a dopamine high? The main dopamine high that you get is from doing good things, not even achieving good things, but working towards good things. So basically, your biology is made by God to keep improving on yourself. So and what kind of improvement is there? What's the best kind of improvement you can have? Is to become a more beautiful, nice kind of person. So there's so much in psychology that keeps pointing towards a higher purpose, to becoming a better person. Like Viktor Frankl says, the ultimate way you can find happiness is through meaning, finding meaning. What is meaning? Meaning means doing good things, improving your life, becoming a better person, not being selfish. And that kind of just reminds me, I'm just going to go a little bit full circle. The reason why I do all these talks is because I can see there's so much unhappiness. Depression is just going up all the time in London, right? And it doesn't need to be like that. When I live in the Middle East, I've been there for a couple of years and I go on holiday there all the time, I find like the difference between there and here is that people are so much more selfish and ignore each other and whatever. And I don't hate London at all. I'm a Londoner myself, right? I feel sorry that people don't realize the basics of happiness, and that's what I'm talking about here. Just doing things for other people will make you happy, okay? And then just to kind of go full circle again, what are we talking about? We're talking about purpose. If you want to know your purpose, a really good litmus test is when you're feeling peace and happiness, that's a good sense that your body is doing what it's supposed to be. And when you're feeling depression and anxiety, it's a good sense or a good test that you're doing something wrong with your life. Like when I started, you might have missed the introduction. I talked about, yes, go on.
How do you exactly suggest like there is something wrong with this? Sorry, I don't like
No, she don't want to be on camera. Yes, go on.
No, the thing when you say about depression,
Yes.
it means that you do something wrong. What kind of something? I mean, like what?
Right, okay. So depression can come from so many things, right? But generally, this is also from psychology. There's an example of the more you say the word I rather than we or other people. Basically, the more you let me keep it simple. The more you help people, the less depressed you get. This is psychologically known. You can study this if you want, right?
I would have to study it. Like, I am volunteering. I do volunteer work.
Sure.
I'm still depressed. I still go to therapy. So how is that related? I do good deeds to others, but how is that related to my own happiness?
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. So you have to try to weed out any personal motive in doing those good things. That's one.
There is like thing you do for yourself.
Sorry, there's the thing you do for yourself. Oh, yeah, I want to feel good, and there's the thing you do for like a certain beliefs or certain rules or certain principles that you believe in, but still you can help other and still not feeling good about yourself. It's not related.
No, thank you very much. Okay, so I love this one-to-one. It really helps, and I hopefully it help lots of people. I'm glad you're speaking out, so we can kind of possibly help people, right? No, that's really good. I like this. So, would you say there's much meaning to your life?
You mean from which aspect? What is the meaning of my life?
What do you think? Do you think there's any meaning or purpose to your life? The reason I'm asking this, just to give it some context, I said the most eminent psychologist in this field of happiness. He said there has to be meaning. The more meaning you have, the more happiness you have, and it can. He's a person who went through the Holocaust. Okay, and he saw the practical difference it has. So if you got meaning, it can literally keep you alive more than even in extreme situations like the Holocaust. So meaning is really powerful. That's the reason why I'm asking about meaning. Just this is not like a test or anything. I'm just wondering, a one-to-one. What is it? Do you feel there's any sort of meaning to your life?
Yeah, I do believe so.
Cool. And let's just go into that a little bit. What meaning do you feel?
Personal to read.
Sure, okay, let's keep it it's personal, fine, right? So, the ultimate way you can find meaning to your life is if you can find an end goal to your life that doesn't change depending on your circumstances. And that it's like a North Star. The star is going to be there forever, but right, okay, but it doesn't depend on if you're rich or poor, the meaning stays the same, and that's God, right? Why? God is, there could be no, if God exists, and I talked about that, and we can talk about how do we know God exists as well if we want to, right? But if God exists, then there could not be a greater purpose, right? And if God is the most beautiful thing that you can possibly conceive, this is what the Islamic understanding is. We have a natural inclination to God. So if that, do you believe in God by any chance?
Yeah, I do. I'm spiritual in a way. But like my point is,
Yeah.
you could have that side. You can have the spiritual side. You can believe in God. You still help people, and you still feel depressed. It's okay. You can have it all.
I think that okay. So
Different amount, but still.
sure, okay, there could be. I think to the extent that you live according to your belief that God exists, I think I don't agree that you can. I've been depressed before as well, and I've got over it, right? And it depends on how much you depend on others versus how much you depend on God.
You can wake up in the middle of the night and pray for God, and still, like, it's a human nature to feel down. Even though, like, unless you have a goal in this life and in the after one, if you want to seek for the God's sake.
And
Oh, sorry.
no, it's okay. Like you have a goal in this life and for the one for the afterlife. You can still volunteer and help other when kind of charity. You can still work for your own personal goals, like in this company or this work or this thing or this that, and you still go back and feel depressed. I just don't see the connection.
Okay,
I'm
no.
doing that all, and I still have depression, and I still go to my therapy.
Sure. Okay. So I want to try to be as helpful as possible because I'm not into arguing. I'm into kind of being helpful. So you get my perspective, right? So, and I'm not saying you are, but I just want to make that clear, right? So, what I had to do to be less depressed is to have less dependence on any human being at all for anything. Right, that's one thing. So as long as you feel like, oh, I have to have a job to get X to be happy, to that extent, that's going to cause more depression. That's one idea, right? And I think, does that make any sense that it could...
Yeah, but then how you do the successor thing in life?
How do you do the...
Successor thing, خلافة in Arabic. When you خليفة الأرض, when you know like you've been placed on this earth to be the successor of it. If you're not gonna aim for a purpose or a job or something, how do you do your part in that?
Ah, I see. So, yes, now I understand. So, you mentioned the word khilafat, which can have different meanings. Khalifa, you said, like, basically, you're a steward, a caretaker of the world. Is that what you mean, right? Okay, fine. Okay, so when I say you do not depend on material material things for your happiness doesn't mean you don't get involved in material things, because through material things you can help people, you can make money, you can do it right, a good business that makes the world a better place, right? But don't depend on it for your happiness, is what I mean. You do the things you're out of duty and responsibility for the world. That's a different, it's how you think about it that makes all the difference. So in Islam, because you said a Khalifa, so you must be like Muslim by any chance, right? Okay, so in Islam, it's the attention that counts. So when you've heard of that, right? So it's the thought behind, it's not the actual action by itself, it's the way you think about the action that makes all the difference. Does that make sense? Right? Okay, another thing I want to say that might help, this is definitely helpful to me, right? Okay, is that there's a word, sabr, which means patient. Now, Arabic is a beautiful language, and I'm going to demonstrate that, right? Okay, so you can really be knocked off your perch and get depression for many, many reasons when you don't have this thing called patience. Now, why I say it's a beautiful language is that the meaning behind the word patience in Arabic means not to get too excited or not to get sad, right? So you're always staying calm, very calm. So like, for example, if I do this talk and it does, I don't get too excited about it, I just do my duty and I'm doing it very calmly. Think about Mr. Miyagi if you're a Karate Kid fan, or think about yeah, exactly.
Not to be up, or down, down.
Yes, and that's right. So because what you have is a thing in our bodies called homeostasis. It means when there's a slight imbalance, your body goes the other way. That's why when people take alcohol, they get excited, but then they get depressed afterwards, right? So you have to always stay calm, and that really helps in staying off depression. So a lot of people who are...
You need to change the environment as well you are in. If it doesn't work, you have done all the good things and then still it's not working. Look around you, the people around you, kind of friends, family, people who are making you probably, more contributed to depression.
Brilliant. Okay, so
the environment where you live, or you just need to move away.
fantastic. Okay, so your environment definitely can help. So we know nature, being in nature, has a powerful effect. It's far more powerful than any antidepressant. Again, not my opinion, this is what psychologists have noted, right? So that's really important. And yes, you know, a lot of people nowadays say just live in the now, which I totally disagree with. This kind of Buddhist kind of idea. It's not even a Buddhist, actually. Let me correct that. This is people who are taking advantage of the label Buddhism, but Buddhism, I believe, is a true religion originally and does not teach that, right? Why I mentioned that is people, if you're just living in the now, you're not thinking about, you're not planning for your future, you're not making changes to your life, so by your surroundings, so that you live a happier place. So if you are, for example, suffering from being an alcoholic, and then you always surround yourself with alcohol, you're not going to solve your problems. You do need to work on your environment.
When it comes to circumstances and the environment surrounding, what if you get out of that environment and you still have the effects of it, like what we call traumas?
Yeah.
Like when they start hitting and kicking back and all forward, even though you're away, you're like, you separate yourself from the people who drink or whatever, like, or you separate your people from the people who harm you, and you still get the traumas. How do you think that could be, like...
That's another fantastic question, because when you have a problem, I think you should compare mental problems with physical problems, okay? Physical problems, if you cut your leg and then you just put a bandage on it, it's not going to be healed in 1 second. So everything takes time. But the question is, are you making progress in the right direction? Right? Are you feeling more peace, less anxiety every day? By any chance, do you feel anxiety?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me roughly, vaguely, because then I could help more, in what area causes anxiety? Okay. Relationships or work?
No, it's...
Neither.
Neither.
Okay.
It's a personal thing, so...
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I'm going to talk about myself, right? In many ways possible, and maybe it'll help somebody, right? I mean, relationships are the main one, but there's kind of different... Like, even in terms of work, Okay, the reason why work can be stressful is because of a relationship, because with your family, because you might be doing a job you hate to show off to other people that you're acceptable to them, your mother, your family, whatever. Okay, so as I said before, the less you depend on other people's opinions, the more happy you'll be. So let me explain that in a better way from the Quran. Okay, it's a really interesting idea, an idea that I live by and has changed my life. Right? Okay, in the Quran it says, if you fear meeting your God or judgment from your God, you'll have two gardens, right? And the meaning of those two gardens is generally a metaphor for paradise. And the two gardens are happiness in this life and happiness in the next. Now, let me explain that. What is fear of God? Because fear of God is something taught in the Bible as well as a source of wisdom. Okay, what has that got to do with overcoming? What has that got to do with creating paradise and happiness in this life? If you have fear of God, then you stop fearing other people. What I mean by that is, other people are puny, pathetic, not of no significance compared to God. But when you live your life, you're wondering what is God thinking, then everything else pales into insignificance. It absolutely changes my life.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Agreed. So it's this process.
Yeah, I can think of that logically and be like, yeah, I have the ultimate power with me. But when you, like, let's just say, assuming the thing for the work, the example you just mentioned, if you have the family, let's just say, I don't know, the father or the mother was keep telling the child, you will never be someone, you're gonna be always a loser, okay? And then he get himself out of that environment, so the environment now clear, and he still have his belief, and he believe in God, and he believe these people words are nothing comparing to the God word, but that words keep kicking in some aspects. Like, it's not just disappear out of nowhere, like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna clear my head. Doesn't work like that.
Okay, so as I say,
The best way is to read about it, is to clear it off. You need knowledge.
okay, so I'm going to say two things. So one thing is, I'm not saying reject your family or leave your family. As much as as from a psychological point of view, the people who live the longest are the ones who stay within their families, like multi-generational households. Yeah,
If their family are not toxic.
that's right. So there's a balance to which that exists. But if you can, one of my problems with the word toxic is that in an individualistic society, everybody becomes toxic. You have to be careful of the balance.
We talk about harmful, toxic.
So I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm trying to say is, you make sure you don't go too far and harm yourself from keeping a distance from the family. It's a difficult thing, right? That's why individualistic societies exist, right?
Getting out of the environment doesn't mean cutting all the connection. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm not gonna talk to my mom or my dad anymore, but it's just like, I'm gonna stop this harmful, like, let's just say emotional, physical, whatever they provide, and I'm just gonna stop it and move on. But the trauma kicks in. That's when I'm telling you about the words. Like, if the family spend the time saying to the child, you're stupid, you're never gonna be someone, he could be still respect his father or his mom and still have a good connection, maybe not living in them with the same house, but he still have these words in his mind. And even with his belief and like, oh yeah, there's like God and there is a great power that protects me now, it still kick in. And the smallest thing, maybe he could be making a coffee and that coffee slip on the oven or something, and then it just kick in. That's how it works.
Okay, fine. No, that's very good. Okay, so there's a theoretical belief in God and a practical belief in God. And a practical belief in God takes time. And what I mean by that is that the more you are willing to sacrifice of your personal needs for God, the more God gives you. So this is in Islam, and I'm going to give you the saying of Prophet Muhammad, but then practically experiencing it is a different thing, right? And this is my personal experience. And God, there's a saying of Prophet Muhammad. He say something like, if you take one hand step towards me, I will take one arm length towards you. If you walk towards me, I'll run towards you. It's a metaphorical thing, which is basically God is saying, you take a tiny step towards me, I'll take millions of steps towards you. And there'll be a stage when literally the hand with which you hit is my hand, the feet with which you walk, and that's my experience of life. I give up so much, I don't need to do this at all. Really. I'm an introvert, by the way. I don't really like talking to people, but I still do this. Really. So the more I give up everything, the more God gives me miracles upon miracles. So what I mean to say is God is alive, but you need to experience that to really depend on God.
I totally agree with
Sure.
what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah.
But what is your practical steps?
My
When the
practical.
trauma kicks in, how to get away from it or how to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Like practical steps. I know what you say theoretically, wordly, okay,
Yeah.
but what is the practical steps?
So I would say each person's life has got different situations where God puts you in, and you have to choose between right and wrong. And every time you choose right, you realize. So I'm going to come back to this idea of meaning. So you can have a fake idea of meaning, a theoretical idea of meaning, but if you are practically every day doing things according to this meaning, and which is basically you're a good person, that you will know deep down that is who you are. So it makes a difference that you do it consistently. Now it sounds like you're already doing a lot of volunteer work and good things, right?
Sorry?
So it sounds. I'm just trying to get a sense of trying to tell you the right thing according to who you are. Do you do a lot of good things already from what you're telling me, right?
Supposedly, yeah.
Sure. Okay. So I'm trying to think of what could it be specifically for you. But for me, it was. I've been always feeding the homeless since I was a kid, donating blood. Okay,
This
but I had.
is not contradict what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can understand as a person, you can fully do that. You can
Yeah.
volunteer, feed
Yeah.
the homeless, do good deeds, and still when you go back, simple situation, simple effect that bring a trauma,
Yeah.
you're trying to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking is when that happened, it's not connected. The trauma and the way you deal with your trauma is not connected to the good deeds that you already did.
I think they are.
You can sit, no, what, you can sit talking to yourself and be like, yeah, I'm a good person. I did this today, so I'm a good person. So this trauma will disappear. It doesn't.
But
It
you
doesn't.
you could maybe you could prepare yourself before trauma. You could
So let me.
prepare
Okay.
yourself
No. I say. Maybe I've.
like you don't care about
Sure.
like, people
Okay.
that do
Let me.
it.
Okay.
You don't care if you
Okay. Let me explain. One second.
The people
Once you
with the
take it
trauma,
off.
Okay, so my answer is, can we just, let me, because this is really good, I just want to answer this, maybe I'm doing it bad, explaining badly, right? Okay, so when you say trauma, this is not, I'm not belittling it, but I'm trying to explain this idea, right? Trauma is usually, they're not hitting you physically, right?
Yeah.
It's an idea, a thought, right?
It's an
And-
alarm system in your brain. It gets unconsciously.
Yes.
You don't control it.
So okay, maybe the danger is in the fact that you have no control and that you're a victim, and that's a really dangerous place to be. Do you understand that you have to have the understanding that there's always cause and effect. There's always a reason. Now, I'm not saying you can immediately solve all your problems immediately. Just like if you have a physical problem, it doesn't get solved immediately either, right? Okay, so it takes time. So the question is, are you getting better? That's the thing, step by step. It's not going to immediately solve. Now the question is, what is the trauma? Like, if you're not going to tell me the exact trauma that you have, right? Okay, but let's just say that somebody, your parents, your whole life have been telling you that you're useless, right? Then the question becomes, why does their opinion matter? That's a really important question. Why does it matter so much that it causes you trauma? It shouldn't practically, because their opinions are just words, right? So then we have to delve into that. You have to delve into that. To why do you care about that? And for me, like my parents will say loads of things. Loads of people here. I'm not belittling it, but loads of people have this situation where their parents are telling them that they're not good enough, and they'll never be good enough unless they do what they want. And I'm doing loads of things that they don't want me to do. And they keep telling me this is rubbish or whatever I'm doing is rubbish, right? Which is fine. Not all of them, but sometimes, right? So the point is, you have to question, why do those words, which are not physically hitting you, why do they make a difference? You have to dig into that and to be really honest with it, and you have to pick away at it slowly, and the result will be less anxiety day by day until you become more stronger. If you're constantly feeling anxiety, you're not going to get better, and the trauma is not going to get away because you're not
pleasing people, like
right. Okay, right. Thank you. So, but you have to have the balance about it's not you're going to please people. Like, I'm trying to be nice to you, not because I care about your opinion. It sounds like a really harsh way of saying it. Just because I have a responsibility to make things better. Does it make sense? Right? And human beings are really strange like that. That's why Viktor Frankl, the psychologist, said all these physical things, food, whatever, they don't seem to have an effect on your happiness. You need basic amounts of food, right? But it's meaning, these weird, strange things called meaning ideas, they are the things that affect you. That's why there's a whole study on psychology, and it's all about the subtle, tiny things, about how you think about things. So back to, let's say, the parents. Maybe the parents are causing you trauma, okay, and I want to make it clear that maybe there's some element of truth in what the parents are saying. For example, I don't like to reject people either, right? Okay, so maybe there's a lot of bad things in what they're saying, and there's an element of truth, and you have to work on the tiny things. This is one of the things I love saying, and this could be really, I hope it makes a difference. The small things are the big things. Yeah? Like, if you get a big car and whatever, you have it, and you like show off to other people, but you feel hollow inside, right? Like a really expensive car is what I mean, right? These things don't really make you happy. What happens is if you buy really expensive things to show off to other people, you just end up feeling disappointed after a few seconds because you get used to it, and then you need to show off more and more and more, and then you've got debts for no reason. So my point is that when the friend, my brother, just said, don't care, I think he said something like, don't care about what other people think. You have to have it in the right balance, which is you don't care about what other people think because you have a reason for what you're doing. You have to be strong about that, right? But at the same time, you care about other people, even the people who are rude to you, because then you become a higher, better person than those people who are trying to knock you down. I think that really helps, for me anyway. Any thoughts? I really appreciate this is really helpful for loads of people, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a nice discussion, thanks.
Cool. Thank you very much for your time. Do you have any opinions on this? So we're talking about purpose of life, okay? And the way you figure out your purpose is if you're feeling happy, that means you're in line with your design. And the example I gave right in the beginning was the example of a bee. A bee is really good at being a bee, right? But if a bee tried to be a cat, sounds stupid, but if a bee tried to be a cat, it would be dead soon, and in between, before it's dead, you'll have a very miserable time. And this is something what human beings do. First of all, they forget they're part of nature. So if you realize you're part of nature, you must have a purpose and a design, like all the other creatures. And if you go against your design, you're going to be miserable. So that's why we're talking about happiness and anxiety and all these things, because if you're happy, that means you're working according to your design. If you're unhappy or feeling depression or things like that, you're doing something against your design, and you need to figure out the tiny details that do that. Anyway, good to see you again, by the way. You were my cameraman the other week, yeah? Alright, so I'm going to end that here, I think. But unless you got a question.
I think happiness depends on what you want. If you want too much and you want to get more, you maybe have nothing can afford you. So,
okay. So let me go into this. So I'm going to tell you. I already said what is the purpose of life, and that if you follow that purpose, you will be happy, right? And that is to be. It's a journey towards becoming godlike or godly. So what does that mean? God wants you to be like God, which is God is. Like, you get rain and food and everything from God, and God doesn't say, well, you can thank God, but He'll give you the food anyway, right? Okay, so you have to be like that. That's an example of what God wants you to be like. So basically, in short, be a good person, and that will make you happy. Now you go, oh no, I was trying to be good sometimes, and people are horrible to me. But then maybe that's a weakness in your goodness. Like, as soon as if I'm good to you, like right now, and then you're rude good to me, I don't mind in a way, because I'm not being good to you as a transaction. I'm being good to you purely because I want to be good to you, with no expectation from you. So these are the kind of important details that make a difference. And the big thing I said, and if this is the one beautiful thing I want to leave you with, is that materialism will never fulfill you. It doesn't mean you don't eat, doesn't mean you don't buy things, but materialism means you make that the object of your life. Only thing that will give you peace is God. And what is the God? God doesn't need anything from you. God just wants you to be a good person. That's it.
So if I think something is enough for you, don't get it. Don't something is you have got enough for you. I think you will feel happy. But if you want to get further result, something maybe cannot get it, you maybe feel unhappy.
I don't really understand. Okay, can you come and help me understand what? Say that again, because my hearing is not so good. Say that again one more time.
I mean, you should feel enough for something, and
If you fall in love.
yeah. If you got it enough, I think you will feel happy. But if you lack ambition,
I'm going to talk about this very important thing. One of the major reasons for depression is falling in love, and then you fall out of love and the relationship breaks down. Okay, I'm going to give it. Okay, so I'm going to give you a very this idea of falling in love. Okay, is a modern Western idea. Okay, it's a modern Western idea. In a proper relationship, it's not I'm falling in love. This is the perfect person. There's no perfect person. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. What is real love is kindness, the kind of love that you show your mother shows you. Okay, so this is the problem, that when you fall in love, this modern Western idea of love, because it's actually lust. Okay, it's the same kind of love that you have when you like buy an iPhone, for example. Okay, if you think, if only I had the iPhone, I would be happy, and then you get the iPhone, what happens? You get used to it and you get bored of it, and that's what happens with people who fall in love, and then the relationship breaks down, or they get bored of you. So I think that's a really good point you made, and I think stay away from falling in love. Go for being a lovely human being towards everybody, and treat your wife like your sister. That sounds a bit weird maybe, but like, you know, like a human being that you have to be kind to, right? And then those relationships are the ones that last, because if you fall in love, okay, then the person who you fall in love with has the same mentality as you. Okay, and say, oh, I'm falling in love, and then eventually they're going to get bored first, or you're going to get bored first, right? So you don't want to be that mentality, because you attract like attracts like. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that help answer your question a little bit?
Yeah. Your question maybe.
Okay, cool. Shall we? Let's end it there. Let's stop recording. Let's do off camera.